Hello and welcome to the 48th episode of the Adoption and Fostering Podcast with me, Scott Casson-Rennie, and him,
Al Coates.
Hey!
Hey, and we're back.
We are back. Summer has ended.
Oh, school's back. Giddy
Literally,
joy.
summer has ended.
Yeah, so many ways. So many
It
ways. Well, how was your summer? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that later, shall we? So you can edit that bit out. Yeah, I'm still in Thai time, and I'm still dreaming about my cocktails and my pool time. But yeah,
That's gone, hasn't it?
sadly, yes.
But you have some news, though, don't you? Come on, share a little teaser before we get to our interview with the lovely Martin Barrow. Come on, tease.
What
share
news?
with the group.
What news?
You know.
What news? Oh, dearie me. No, I really don't actually.
You know, you and him indoors.
Oh, that news. Do you know what? I've had so many people go, "Oh, I thought you were already." There you go. There's a teasing line, isn't it? That's a tease line, and you'll have to listen after the interview with Martin Barrow to find out more. There you go.
Oh well, okay. That's kept us all waiting there, hasn't it?
We're all in suspender belts now, aren't you?
Excellent.
Right?
Well, yes. So shall we? I shall give you a brief introduction. Martin Barrow is someone you must follow. Martin on Twitter, do you?
I really don't actually.
Do you not? Oh no, that's really gone wrong. Well, Martin Barrow.
I'm going to have to now.
You are. You must. You do follow him. You're being silly. Well, he's a very interesting character. He's quite not outspoken is the wrong word for him, but he's got some really interesting perspectives on foster care, and he's controversial as well. So hopefully we can draw him onto the rocks of controversy, because I'm feeling very militant. I'll be honest with you.
What are you indeed? Oh dear, we're in for one of them nights, are we?
Not just in general. It's this growing feeling in me that I've become so incredibly vanilla and dull that I need to. I'm
the same. So this could be a cracking podcast, then, couldn't it?
Oh,
just for the record, I am following him. I didn't think I was, but I am following him. So
yes, thank you. So we're going to set this up, and we'll speak to Martin, who is a foster carer, and he, no doubt he'll introduce himself. So let's go and find him on the internet somewhere. We'll go. Hello, Martin.
Hi, how are you? Good to be talking this evening.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. We've got quite a lot of questions that I'd like to ask you. I know Scott's probably got questions as well, because we're both ex-foster carers, aren't we, Scott?
We are. If you can define one child as an ex-foster carer, then I'm an ex-foster carer, yeah.
Well, you went through the same process as Martin, I'm sure.
Well, this is true, yeah.
So, I mean, for people who perhaps don't know who you are, could you give us a brief introduction to who you are and how you became a foster carer?
So, my wife Lorna and I became foster carers just over 9 years ago. I was a journalist. I still am a journalist. I worked for the Times newspaper for a long time, 25 years almost. But I've been a journalist pretty much since school days, and I still write, but it's not traditional, typical journalism anymore. My wife, her background is professionally, she was an accountant, an unqualified accountant, self-taught, bookkeeping and stuff. And when we started fostering, we still both had jobs. So I was news editor at the Times, and Lorna ran her own accounts business from home. So, and we kept those jobs going for many years. And so it was pretty full on. We also have two daughters who were in their teens when we started fostering. So it was, it was a busy time. Not quite sure how we made it work looking back on that, but there you are. It did seem to work.
What inspired you to foster? You sound like quite professional. Could I describe you as a professional couple? That would.
Yeah, sure.
Why?
Well, why not? I mean, is the obvious answer. So why not? Because we can. We have the. I think we have the experience and the skills and the bandwidth, emotional and physical bandwidth to be able to do it. And my question is, I guess I would ask why more people don't do it, whatever their background. I guess taking a step back, we both come from very large families.
Right.
I'm one of all included, I'm one of 7 siblings, and Lorna's one of 5. So we've grown up in very busy, full households. We both had, I think, what I can fairly describe as a bumpy start to life, and I think that has made us. We've certainly experienced the best of families, and we've experienced the worst of families, and I think that made us come into adulthood with a certain set of principles and perspective, a determination to make sure that whatever we did with, when we had our own children, we were going to give them what we felt was going to be a better start. And I guess running that kind of open family household where all people were always welcome, which was very different to my own family. I think, over time, long before we were fostering, we found that we always had children, young people, grown-ups spending exceptionally long periods of time at home.
So the community waifs and strays, did they all sort of turn up at your house?
Yeah, in the nicest possible way.
Yes,
and I think fostering was something we'd spoken about long before we actually became foster carers, and then we deliberately waited until our own daughters we felt were old enough to be able to deal with it, really, and also, to be fair to them, to give them the time as mum and dad that we felt would be best for them. But once there came a point where we felt we really have to make a start, and so we did. So we were approved as foster carers. We've only ever fostered for a local authority for West Sussex. They've been, I think they've been pretty good to us. I think we've been good to them. It's been a good relationship with its ups and downs, as you might expect. But, for a local authority with the pressures and constraints that they have to deal with, I think they've been fair.
I mean, that even that point, I find really interesting that you're really comfortable to name the local authority you come from, and that's really uncommon amongst sort of on social media foster carers. They're very nervous.
I know, and on social media, I've always been identified, so people know who I am, which is an advantage, I think, because people. What they see is what they get, but also it imposes certain constraints on how you frame your fostering experience. So I'm not anonymized, so I'm always aware that I have to be very careful how much information I share, and I think hopefully most of the time I get it right. It does inhibit my response to some of the comments I get.
I can imagine it does, actually.
But it is what it is, really. And I think back in the day, I took it when we first became foster carers. I was aware that there's this there's such a lack of knowledge and understanding about fostering and adoption, and it is in part because people are unable to share much of what they do because of the obvious constraints, restrictions, but also there's a reluctance really to talk openly about it. And I think in the long run, I think that works against the best interests of children and young people, because we don't learn from each other, we don't share the good, we don't share the bad. We tend to have little local groups whose experiences are very similar. So we all kind of reinforce each other's views and prejudices rather than actually being open and really learning from each other. And I think that is in a way is fostering in a nutshell. I think there is a big problem with fostering in the UK because of that lack of. There are no common standards. There's no agreement about what makes good foster care. There are problems in the information which is shared and what one local authority or provider knows about the other and how they work together. There are barriers at virtually every turn, if I can mix my metaphors. And I think that really does work against the best interests of children. I think it stops us from doing things well. So hopefully by adopting, speaking openly about fostering, despite those restrictions. Hopefully, at the very least, I can get a debate going. I know it winds a lot of people out, but I think hopefully there's a lot of people out there who also, even if they don't participate, they read some of what I say and think, yeah, I get some of that. It makes sense.
Yeah. I'd kind of written a list of a few questions, but I guess you've drawn me on to some of them. And one of them I thought is, you sort of inhabit quite a peculiar stance in that you, in many aspects, you're quite traditional in your fostering, aren't you? You kind of, there's almost like you talk about it in terms of it being a sense of calling and part of your family, and so often there's an element of conflict with you on Twitter, and I've noticed that the last few days especially, where there's this other group of people who want to kind of want to professionalize it, and there's the sort of the battle lines are fairly clearly drawn. But you're obviously a progressive as well. So when I have talked to you, and we had a conversation last week, and you're clearly a progressive and have got quite clear thoughts about the future of fostering, which puts you then in with the people who want to see change. So you're straddling this world of you're quite traditional, but you want to see change.
But I think that's a reflection of how complex fostering and adoption are. There is no black, white, no yes, no answer to many of the questions. It's quite a complex conversation, but I think that fostering, I see fostering as a vocation. Let me take a step back. I think one of the reasons why the care of vulnerable children and young people is in a difficult place in the United Kingdom is because the community doesn't accept its responsibility towards children and young people. There's a sense foster carers do what they do and they can get on with it, and great, I don't have to worry about it anymore. But actually, as I've often said, fostering is at its best when the village, the town, the local community buys into it and supports you. We can't do this on our own. And we're fostering 3 kids at the moment who've got a very difficult background, and we need help. We do our best. Yeah. But in the end, they go to school, they see doctors, they go to youth clubs, they take their lives with them, and they are in contact with other people. Unless other people understand that at every turn they have a responsibility to them, fostering can only do so much. So if you build on that sense of community and you're expecting people to help you and to support you and to support the children, then I think it's unfair to me to say, well, this is my job. I get paid a lot of money for doing it, but I expect you to do it because you're good people. That's part of the answer to that question. Yeah. But when we open the door to children, we don't know how long they're going to stay with us. They may stay for weeks, months, years. There's even a chance they'll become part of our family. Many foster carers don't really know what's going to happen and become long-term carers or adopt children. So to begin to talk about fostering as a job when essentially you're opening the door to somebody who you may come to think of as your son or daughter it's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I take that because there's that huge, it's open-ended for a lot of foster carers. But for some foster carers, they're quite clear from the outset that they're never going to do that, or they never can do that. So is there a conversation to be had about having a whole spectrum of types of fostering, or statuses within fostering?
And I think we already have that. I think there are many foster carers who specialise in have the experience and the training to look after children, young people with particular disabilities in a way that I just can't do it. And I think it is fair I think we have and always have had a cohort of foster carers who do very special things, and I think they should be recognised in a very different way.
But could that not then...
Absolutely.
could that then
I guess where we're going to with this conversation is, do I think that every foster carer should be paid a salary, and should I be employed by West Sussex County Council, and is that going to make me a better foster carer? The answer is no, it isn't. It isn't going to make me a better foster carer. So who do I work for currently? Who do I work for currently? I'll tell you who I work for. And my only sole responsibility is to the 3 children who are asleep upstairs at the moment. Those are the people I work for.
Yeah.
I don't work for West Sussex. I don't work for social services. I can tell, publicly, I can tell West Sussex County Council to sod off. I don't agree with that. I think it's bollocks. I think it's the wrong decision for these children. They can't sack me.
No, but
they can't.
Yeah, but you know that they can. They have ways and means. They could remove the children if they thought you weren't acting in the best interest.
The reality
of them.
is, that over the past 9 years they haven't, and it's because they have. I think, and I know I stand accused of, well, they do it because they know who you are. I think that's not fair, and I think they do it because they know we're good foster carers. And in the end, apart from anything else, there are very few families who can welcome 3 or 4 children in one go. So, we have a special value to them. But I do genuinely think that they understand. In the end, we will go along with whatever they think is best for the children. That's our responsibility, and I can't get away from that.
But you've got
it won't stop me putting up a bloody good fight on behalf of those children if I think the decision is wrong.
Yeah, I want to take you back because you're very good at putting your opinion forward. So I'm going to come back to you, right? But within that spectrum, there are some foster carers who wouldn't, being employed by the local authority, suit them and enable them to function, and would potentially increase the cohort, or maybe not increase the cohort, but give more flexibility or a different range of carers? Because you'll see it probably where you live, but I see it all the time. We need carers on back of buses, on the side, and the council will sponsor anything, some bus shelters and roundabouts. But the reality is, we don't need that many more carers. We need the right carers, don't we?
That's my line.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I've preempted that. So, I'm a step ahead all the way. So if there'll be carers like you who are very clear about what you want to be, how you want to be perceived, how you want to function in your role. There are other carers who say, actually, that's great, but I can only do this if it becomes a job.
Okay.
Yeah, is that a problem?
And no, it isn't, and I don't think there's a single answer to that. I don't think there's a single answer to that. So don't take this necessarily in the order of priority, but I think there's immense value. And so, first of all, anybody who claims to speak for foster carers is lying. Foster care and foster carers are an extraordinarily diverse group of people. There's 60,000 or so foster carers in the UK, and most do not engage with social media. Most don't engage with the fostering network. They keep themselves to themselves. They do what they do, and they get on with it. So anybody who claims to know what's going on in their mind is not telling the truth. One of the disappointments of the fostering stocktake is it didn't really get under the skin and answer that question. What is the makeup of the fostering workforce? How many people out there have jobs? How many people own their own homes, do this, do that? What are their occupations? We still don't know that. So anybody who says a full-time job, turning fostering into a full-time job is what people want, actually, nobody knows. I certainly don't know. Yeah. I suspect. I really don't know. I may be on my own here. I may be just such a random, weird foster carer, and there's a whole 60,000 other foster carers out there laughing their socks off at me. I really don't know. So the fostering network has just carried out a survey. Yeah. Its annual survey of the nation. 4,000 people have taken part. Now, that represents about 6 to 7% of the fostering workforce. Now, I don't know if that 6% are the kind of mostly people who've got a grievance, have had difficulties, are struggling to make it, or are they a cross-section? I have no idea. For a membership survey, that seems remarkably low to me, having conducted membership surveys for other non-fostering organisations. So I think that survey will tell us things. We don't know the answer. It will tell us things, but it's a snapshot. And I think this is one of the problems of fostering, is that we just get snapshots and individual opinions about what people want. And if I could broaden that out a little, one of the problems we have with the care of children and young people is that we have been, as a society, we have been abysmal at gathering evidence about children and young people in care. We should know everything about them, and we know nothing. We don't know where they end up. We don't know where they've been. And when we talk about trying to fix foster care, one of the big weaknesses of my argument, as much as anybody else's, is that we just don't know what foster carers are about.
I mean, but there is the mechanism there to potentially do that, because every local authority, every foster carer is on the register,
Absolutely.
Ofsted's register.
Well, let's do it.
But
let's do it.
Well, I mean, I've sat in meetings where Ofsted have talked about what they're going to take through the data set every year, and they're just not interested in their. I mean, it's a requirement. I have to do it. I do hours for the agency I work for, and it's a real trawl. But to add in any additional data, there will be huge pushback from the local authorities. But I think you're right. I think it's like, measuring
people cite numbers about care leavers, about how so many end up in prison and blah blah blah. The reality is we have a tiny amount of data about care leavers, and we know some of the 99% of what we should know we don't, because we don't collect the data, and that affects the way that is hugely important, because it affects the way we set up a system to provide care. Because we're ignorant. We just don't know enough about the system. We don't know what works. We don't know what doesn't. We don't know where it works and where it doesn't. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways we're off the beaten track here, because I can't remember the question I asked you. Well, it was about professionalising foster care.
Sure.
But you said that.
Hang
on, right? Hang on. Right. Hang on. Who's in charge here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ding ding.
Ding ding. No, my question to you is. I'm not cross at all. And actually, to some extent, I'm playing devil's advocate, because I think it'd be, if we all got on here and all shouted agreement at each other, then where's the fun in that? So what I have seen on social media, and there's groups and communities and collectives of foster carers who are saying, actually, with something different to what you're saying. You are perhaps a lone voice in amongst and. I take all that you're saying about, how many people, is that representative? Are you the voice, the silent majority? But these this group of people, and we should get them on, shouldn't we? We should. Of
course, yeah.
Yeah, and I probably will do that. And there's a collective, and they see it very differently. They really want, they want employment rights, they want pensions, they want sickness benefits. And I know people, suddenly Mummy, who actually, when she hasn't got a placement, that's a real problem. And I've got friends who, when they haven't got a placement, that is a real problem. It gives then after a few weeks they can manage, but then they say, actually, I'm not sure I can be a foster carer anymore unless I get a placement in the next week or two.
Yeah. So I have written and said many times that at the moment there are many injustices in foster care. I get blue in the face until somebody actually listens to me on this. One of the points I made in a recent article was that it was probably illegal, the way in which foster carers are treated at the moment, in the sense that I should have the freedom to provide my care services to any provider. I mean, West Sussex County Council should not be able to stop me. If they can't provide a placement, I should be able to go to East Sussex County Council or Brighton and say, actually, I'm idle at the moment. Is there anything I can do for you? At the moment, I'm prevented from doing that. And I think it's a restraint of trade. I think it's.
Who pays for your registration? Who pays for the registration of you? Would you pay for that? Who would you pay my wages to assess you?
But once I'm assessed, I'm assessed. If one of the problems is there are different standards according to different providers, which is absurd. There should be a single standard across at least England, probably across the UK. It's a tiny country. I mean, for goodness sakes, if we cannot create a single standard that all fostering providers can recognise, then we might as well all pack up and go home.
What do you mean by a standard? Because I assess people for Form F assessments that's one of my jobs.
So one of the obstacles in the way is that you can be approved by fostering provider A, but fostering provider B says, well, actually, we have to approve you again because we're not sure the process you went through was up to our standards.
Yeah. So the transfer process.
Yeah. But why?
The thing is, and sorry to butt in on the conversation here. I'm just, a little wallflower, just listening in. But it's the same with adoption, as in... Sorry, it's not the same with adoption, is it? Because local authorities who are looking to place children would trust that local authority that they've done the assessment correctly, and that all the forms have been filled in, the panel recommendation was right, and ratification was right, etc., etc. So what I'm inclined to agree with that, actually.
So if you remove that obstacle, and it shouldn't be beyond us to come up with some kind of system, if you remove that obstacle, then it makes it easier for foster carers who, for some reason or other, haven't got a place. I know of a local authority where not a single one of their foster carers has a placement at the moment.
That's shocking. But there is a framework for assessment. The assessment, I could quite clearly say that every assessment would be, you'd have done at least the same bureaucratic process. So you probably use the BAF Form F, which is the most current version, 2017. So you're right, I absolutely agree. However, the quality of Form F, but that's the same for adoption, isn't it? So yeah, I can agree to that. So you remove a big obstacle almost immediately. I think it's a restraint of trade. I'm surprised the union haven't tested that in court, because I think they'd win. I think they stand a better chance of winning that case than they do as the current case before an employment tribunal. Yeah, but just to come back to adoption, and the comparison is that the authority pays for the adopter, though, don't they? So there's a transfer of money. So I'm thinking, I work for a small provider. We assess a family, and it's an outlay of money from us as a business model, and then they're wedded to us. But what's to stop the foster carer thinking, oh well, they're a local agency, I'll get approved through them, and then how can I trade around the region? So
this is another issue which I would pick up on, is I think the current setup where we have a multiplicity of providers is unsustainable. We foster for our local authority. We would only ever foster for our local authority. We would simply not consider fostering for anyone else.
Why not?
Because we feel that this is the role of a local authority. We feel passionately that the care of children and young people in fostering and adoption should only be left to local authorities.
Is that kind of a socialist perspective, or
I don't care what you call it. I don't care what you call it.
What's behind that then? What's underneath that? Because it's irrelevant what you call it.
Frankly, I don't trust anybody else to do it in the best interest of children. In the end, I think that. And I think it has contributed to the instability of the system, because at the moment you have fostering providers competing for a scarce workforce, and it's created an instability which need not be there in fostering, at least.
Yeah. So I would counter that, because I do agree with you. I think that you could go to provider A, and you may realise that they're a for-profit company and they're making money off it. You go to provider B, which have perhaps come from charities that have come out of sort of the Catholic care charities, and I've worked for a couple of foster care agencies, independent foster care agencies, and found them to be fantastic. Not profit focused at all, wholly child focused, and they're given the scope to support foster carers and children way beyond a local authority worker would ever be given.
But that is something that we need to address. That's something we need to address in. Yeah. If a local authority is unable to provide that, then we should find a way for the local authority to do that, rather than say the local authority so far has been unable to do that, so let's everybody else have a go, which is what happens at the moment. And I think it has. I think it has contributed to the instability of the fostering system because it has created some weird competitive marketplace, and it has created injustices in the system. I mean, the disparity between what foster carers earn in A, B, C, D provider is just crazy. It is absolutely crazy. I think one of the reasons why
if you free foster carers up to go to any agency they want, then you will create a market.
Sorry, we're talking about children in need and children in care.
Yeah,
what kind of market? We're not talking about soap powders here. We're talking
no, I'm not talking about a market, but I'm saying
fizzy pop. We're talking about children. We don't need a market to look after children.
That if you say that every foster carer can then work forever.
We have not created a market that works in the best interest of children.
No, but the solution of letting all foster carers be free to work for whoever they want could potentially create a different market where they will go, oh, well, I'll work for that agency.
I mean, in my idealized world, you'd only, it is feasible because of where we live. It is feasible for us to work for at least 3 local authorities. And of course, if you're in one of the London boroughs or in part of Manchester or Birmingham, then you know the same would probably apply. I'm within striking distance of West Sussex County Council or East Sussex County Council from Brighton City Council. So all these things are possible for me. I'm not talking about working for Acme PLC or welovechildren.com. I'm talking about working for my local authority. I just think, Doug, it's an old-fashioned view. As you say, I'm very traditional in many ways. I do think there are certain societal duties that fall on the state, fall on local authorities, and I think at the moment one of the reasons why fostering in particular is struggling is because it's created this extraordinary amorphous, slightly unregulated, weird market where people are working against each other rather than together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I agree wholeheartedly, but I think that if you in trying to tweak one element of the system, you potentially kind of have these ripple effects, don't you, with the other? So I think
I say we're in the United Kingdom. We have this kind of weird mixed economy where people don't bat an eyelid when you have schools, private, public, academies working all alongside together, and everybody thinks is the way things should be. And fostering, is part of that kind of weird hybrid model.
And adoption as well.
Adoption as well.
And I would imagine that if I dare say so, I think that adoption in 10, 15, 20 years I would imagine it'll be wholly privatised. That's my suspicion. But that's maybe me being cynical and, what I am conscious of is that we've drawn you onto the rocks and we've hit this, we've hit the floor running on this conversation, haven't we?
Can I just throw in one final thought? No, I think people, we talk about in fostering about having paid employment being the solution to all our problems. And I would just say, well, let's look at health and care in the round. Let's see how easy it is to recruit a healthcare assistant at the moment, how easy it is to work as a healthcare assistant, how respected and valued you feel as a healthcare assistant, what rights you have, what whistleblowing ability you have, where do you sit in the kind of... Does it really work for them in the way that we're claiming it does? I really am not so sure. And really final thought is I personally am concerned about how this looks to the general public. So I mean, as a foster carer for West Sussex, as I've said many times, you can go and look on the on their website and you can find out how much I get per week. To look after children. I happen to think that it's quite a generous settlement. Now, if I was working my butt off with the missus to bring up 3 kids, struggling to pay the bills in Haverfordwest or Crawley, and I listened to this conversation, I looked up what Martin Barrow gets as a foster carer, I'd be pretty miffed actually if I was to sit here and say, this guy's asking for more money.
Yeah, I mean that's always the case, and I think the whole debate about figures gets very complex because people.
Well, it's not complicated at all. People say we want, we would like a better settlement, but when you kind of pin them down to numbers, they get a bit squeamish. I'm not squeamish at all. I mean, I often put up a web link to the allowances that I get as a foster care and say, well, what do you think? I work for a bog standard local authority. There's nothing special, much as I love them.
But I think the complexity is that, like you said, people look on from the outside and go, well, that seems like an awful lot of money. And I'm not sure that it...
If you threw in a salary and allowances, I would be, speculating, I would be receiving £50,000-60,000 a year from my local authority.
For looking after 3 children, which...
Yeah.
It's
the
no more than you ask. Yeah.
Sorry, the average wage in the United Kingdom is 25 grand.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about this. How does that look? And people say, well, he can only say that because he's rich.
Well, I know I've seen that accusation.
I'm not.
But you said earlier in the conversation, but these are children, and we're these are some of society's most vulnerable children who've experienced probably the most challenging that we can imagine, who are then thrown into strangers' houses, and they're thrown into your house and my house at the drop of a hat. Yeah. We're not asking people to just play mum and dad, are we? Because you don't just play dad. You do an awful lot more, don't you? And so it's...
No, I don't.
Well,
no, I don't.
So you don't tend to lack reviews?
No, I...
You don't write daily logs?
I
3 daily logs per child?
It always gets me into trouble, but when I say this, but I think much of what we do, I don't see it as the degree of burden that a lot of carers see it, and I think once you begin to see it as that, then you're in difficulties. Most parents, sometimes unconsciously, are doing a similar amount of recording during the course of a day or a week of their child's existence, and
I'm not sure they are. No, I don't think. I think that's unfair. But I think what you bring, you're kind of highlighting another problem is that I've worked with a range of foster carers through my career. I've been a social worker for 5 years, and so there's a whole spectrum of levels of education of where people have come from, their own experience, their life story, their social class, if we want to get into that, and their income levels, where they live. And so actually there's some carers who actually writing logs is a stretch for them, but caring for children is not a stretch. At the other end of the spectrum, I've got people who writing 500 words at the end of every day it's not even a sniff. Yeah. It doesn't even scratch the surface. So, for you, it's probably not a problem. You're a journalist. Writing words is bread and butter for you, isn't it?
I mean, I think you're falling down that or that same conversation as always, and my argument is dismissed because of X situation or X experience.
No.
And okay, I would also say that actually for children who do come to live with us and spend time with us, who have never seen someone with a job or work for a living, actually it's quite an eye-opener and an experience in itself to know that people actually do have jobs and actually go to work and see how things work. There's a real value in having somebody in the household, and
it's a window into a normal or a relatively normal world, isn't it?
So I'm not saying that if you have a situation where 2 people are full-time foster carers who don't go to work, so they contribute in many different ways, but to kind of say that somehow the kind of person who works has other income, has other experiences, somehow his or her fostering experience is somehow less valuable.
I hope you don't think I was saying that. I wasn't saying that, but I've seen that accusation levelled at you, and I don't think it's fair. But I think that I've worked with families who've cared for children with really complex disability, and children who will never ever have anything other than need full care.
Are you saying that we don't do that?
No, at all. But what I'm saying is that there's such a range that there's got to be a range of ways of engaging with foster carers. There's got to be can we not find a way of saying, well, there are some people who actually a salary works, and for some people like yourself who say, I understand that, but for us, I don't want that.
And if you see what I've written pretty much that. So I don't know what you're trying to criticize or bring out to me here. If you have a look at what I've written, I have written pretty much that. Yeah. That over a period of time, we shall see more foster carers who specialise in special needs, or they bring certain skills to the
child, sort of things.
Which will be paid for. Do I think it should become the norm that foster carers is built up as a job and as a career and receives a full-time salary with all the rights that go with it? I think in the long run, it will not be best for the children and young people, and I don't think we'll have the desired effect to extend the workforce in the way that many claim.
Yeah. For full disclosure, I'm probably 90% with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, but I felt that
I shall click that bit right at the end when people start pelting me with tomatoes on Twitter tomorrow.
Yeah, again.
As we're bound to happen. This is one of the problems. There's no soundbite answer to any of these things. I mean, I have said many, many times that foster care, that there is a minimum fostering allowance. And the sense that there are local authorities or fostering providers who pay less than the minimum fostering allowance is a scandal. Should be struck off. Should not be able to provide fostering services. Yeah. And this is one of the big issues. It should have the same weight of law as the national living wage. It should be something you fine people over. And yet somehow we allow it to stay in place.
Yeah. I think that there's such contradictions in all aspects of fostering, isn't there? We want our cake and we want to eat it, and that doesn't seem to be what's happening. But what I'm aware of, we've been arguing now, not arguing, speaking at volume. I'm not sure how this will listen back.
I'm afraid that's me. I do apologise. That's me just getting
your blood up.
Yes, exactly.
I guess, reflecting on that, you've been a foster carer, and I think that I know that Scott's got some questions. We've got a few questions we prepared. Just thinking about that really it's interesting to get your experience as a foster carer. And so, Scott, come on. Next hard questions. Adoptions answer, Jeremy Paxman.
I'm trying. No. I'm seriously, listening to this, it was like I was going to put my boxing gloves on to separate you both at one point. But what's interesting is the same conversations that come up again and again is the transition between fostering and adoption. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that and what your own personal experience of that is, actually, because we hear too often of foster carers who no longer are in the child who's maybe moved on to, whether it's back to birth family or whether it's onto some other care setting or adoption or whatever. What's your thoughts and experience on that?
So in our fostering lives, we've been involved with adoption twice. We fostered a new baby who went to adoption just before her first birthday. And then we fostered siblings, two of whom were adopted. So we're involved in that whole process of handover. It was, where to start, where to begin? It was tough for everyone. We have very strong relationships with all our former foster children, and with their current carers, parents, grandparents, and we value that enormously. We think it's good for the kids, but looking at this very selfishly, the the relationship we have with all these families is of immense value to us. It means the world. It has made it possible, I think, for us to continue fostering.
Yeah.
During the toughest times, we remember the fact that actually children, now young people, will come around to visit us, or we'll go around to them, or spend time, and we're still a big part of their lives. And so our experience of adoption is kind of coloured by that, in the sense that over time we've been able to build quite strong relationships with them and see how the children have done, and it has been very positive. We've had ups and downs, or they've had ups and downs along the way, and we've seen it and felt it quite deeply. But on balance, I think, and particularly with, being able to judge over time, it has been tremendously positive, particularly when you reflect on that first day when they came into your home and who they were at that time, and the people they are now likely to become. And it is uplifting, I guess. I mean, it really makes a world of difference.
So with your fostering values, do you see beyond the kind of the end of the foster placement and continue to try and support the young person, children, as much as you can? Because I know that's quite difficult as well, isn't it?
We've had really quite substantial engagement with most of the families. So some have gone back to parents, some have gone or to long-term foster care or to adoption, and our relationship it varies depending according to need. But in one case, we were so anxious about the home they were returning to. We helped redecorate and refurbish, and made sure that when they went back to somewhere we felt comfortable. They had, that they were more likely to settle and prosper than otherwise would have been the case. We put a fence around the garden, and I guess when I talk about how I find it difficult to think of fostering as a job, I think of moments like that. The things that we felt were necessary and that we did, not because we're foster carers or not because it's a job, but because we felt, it's our commitment. You can't have children in your home for 6 months or a year and then at the end of the day say, off you go, knowing that circumstances are less than auspicious. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Yeah. And we remember all their birthdays and Christmases, and we know when their first day of school was, and we know Easter, we have an Easter egg hunt in the garden for the kids. They come round every Christmas, and they're part. We now have grandchildren. The grandchildren know them. They know them by name. They see their aunts and uncles in the street, and we greet each other as friends. As more than that. Nan Pat is my adopted grandmother, who has been, came under the most difficult circumstances into our lives and is now, the rock of our lives. She's an important person to me, and we would never have met had it not been for really difficult circumstances under which her great-grandchildren came into our lives.
Wow.
It's a very long answer to your question.
No. It's a really good one, because I think I mean, my view, and I'll take you back to something you said earlier, is that the majority of foster carers, or even adoptive parents, actually have that want to do it rather than there's no other kind of I'm struggling with my words here, so forgive me, but there's no need within them for most foster carers to actually continue being parents. It's about doing something above and beyond what they want to do, and in a way, not for all, because I think it would be the the numbers would be a lot less in adoption, but I still think there's a crossover in terms of moral compass in wanting to do the right thing as well. And what interests me is when we hear about some foster carers, because it does happen, that just say, well, that child's moved on and that's it. And that sense of loss for that child must be immense to be able to cope with. You know, not only are they potentially continuing to be traumatized by a new family or being returned back into a situation that maybe isn't perfect or something like that. So I think that as a foster carer, your moral compass has almost got to be bang on to be able to continue to do that through the number of years that you've done it, and to be able to continue to support those people. So I mean, hats off. Like I say, I only fostered one and we ended up adopting him. So, I'm not really the experienced adopter that.
Oops.
Yeah. So I guess we waited before we became foster carers for the reason I explained earlier on. I guess what a consequence of that is that we were slightly older when we became foster carers. So I've been fostering for about 10 years, and I'm 9-10 years, and I'm 56 now. So we've had children who there's always that point in a fostering place, in a placement when somebody says to you, have you thought about the long term, the future?
I still wake up in the night screaming.
Yeah. And there have been several occasions when it has been a serious consideration, and one of the reasons why it has not happened, I guess, is our age, because we tend to foster very young children. And, I'm a grandfather now, and it just not that age. There are many families where age is not an issue, but we've always felt, that there must be something better for them out there. And I think actually our record in helping to find that person has been pretty good. When we begin to talk to people about moving on, we break some of the rules, because it's a wrench for the kids. We have said we will always be part of your life as long as you want us to be, and B, there will be somebody out there waiting for you who is far better than we are, who will provide a life that we can't provide. And that has happened. I can honestly say, looking back and maintaining lives that the children are now leading lives that we, for one reason or another, could not quite have provided.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. I'm looking at the time, and I think that we've taken up almost an hour of you. And if it got too shirty, I'm really sorry. Is that
no?
right, Scott?
No.
Okay.
I'm louder than I probably need to be, but it's partly a function of getting used to talking through a microphone and with headphones.
No.
So I hope that made some sense, and I hope, if nothing else, it shows that actually, I'm not just just arguing with people about this because I want to argue. It's because I genuinely do think foster care does need help. It needs a lot more buy-in. It needs a lot more support from everybody. My final message would be that I'm a foster carer, but the responsibility for the children in my care is everybody's, not just mine.
And that's a great message to end on. Well, Martin, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you good luck on Twitter. And
be gentle.
Yeah, be gentle. Be kind. Let's play nice. Play nice. I promise to wade in on your behalf next time things get really shirty. And Scott will as well.
Thank you very much.
Because Scott's great on Twitter fights. Yeah.
I think you'll laugh from the sidelines. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye, Martin. Bye. Well, there you go. That was Martin Barrow.
Where's that gin?
What? I really like him.
Can I just say,
yeah,
the passion that he has for fostering just shone through in every word he said. And yes, I know he's a journalist, and he's probably he wasn't coming on here to take us hostage, but he certainly wasn't backwards at coming forward.
It was touch and go there. There was nearly a coup on the podcast.
Yeah, and I felt like it was like watching my eldest and my youngest poking sticks at each other.
Oh, it's not fair. I'm nice,
no,
really.
I mean that in a nice way. But yeah, his passion certainly shines through. The one question I was thinking about there a second ago was. I've got a feeling we could have gone on for hours, but the one question I would have asked him had we had hours would be, did he think that fostering and adoption was fit for purpose? But
I was tempted to add that question, but I thought we'd...
Yeah.
I
thought we'd probably be here next week, actually.
Yeah. Well, we should get him back on. I mean, I would like to say Martin Barrow, a friend of the show, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Let's not push it yet.
Yeah, we need to...
You might not like it when we go there.
I'll tweet him after this is finished, and I'll throw myself on his mercy.
Can I just justify my silence by saying, you went all Paxman on his ass, Mr. Coates.
I'm sorry. I feel dirty.
You've been having training over the summer, honestly, or is that the frustration of the summer?
The whole dirty lot came out. Bless your heart.
But he's got some really valid points to make, and I find myself wanting to jump in at points, but I dare not interrupt him just in case I got told off. It's like the headmaster at school.
It is very much so. I think it would be really worthwhile though to get a counter view to that. As someone with equal passion and a different perspective, because I think that both perspectives are right, and he's sort of acknowledged that actually there's probably room for both. I do feel very tired now all of a sudden. I need a little power nap perhaps. But anyway, another one. Right, okay. So tell me your news. Come on, stop messing around. What's your news? Come on.
My God.
Come on.
Yeah, it's you that's made the big thing out of it, not me.
Share with the group. Share with the group.
Well, Al became a granddad again, so there's a bit of news.
Well, there's a story. I tell you.
Yeah, no. I tell you. I followed it all. Tire levers, Dyson, Vaseline.
Vaseline. God, slip and
What
slide.
Did it take 5 days?
It took 5 days, honestly. It's just a traumatic. I took a week off work.
Yeah, and I'm sure your daughter was feeling exactly the same.
Oh, yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Very chill.
Anyway, yes. So just God, it seems so minor now that it's all happened.
Just say it.
So when we were on holiday, my other half, Tristan, friend of the show, never been on the show.
We should get Tristan and Martin together. That would be fun.
No,
never.
No, never.
Angry voices.
Never in the same room. So anyway, he proposed to me and asked me to marry him.
And what did you say?
I said no. No, I said yes. I said yes. What's my budget? Yeah.
Well, didn't you say what's my budget, and then say yes when you got the answer?
Yeah, but sadly, no exchange of any rings or anything like that. It's a very weird thing to talk about, and this kind of harks back to the historical sort of being shy about being gay, because the word gay in marriage I still struggle a little bit with them, because it's acceptable and it's legal and it's it's all those kinds of things that it never was during my upbringing. So I still it's not that I cringe, because I don't cringe, because I'm very happy and made a life for 20 years, 3 kids, blah blah blah. So I'm not embarrassed about being gay, but it's just those kind of words, stringing them together in a sentence, it feels a little bit
it's a new thing.
Yes, and some people have gone, well, I thought you were already married, and I think that is because his nickname is a hubster when I refer to him maybe on social media or something like that. No, we aren't married. We've been living in sin. No, we haven't been.
Shame on you. Well, I think if we're going to use biblical references, are we going to? I'm not going to draw. Don't draw me onto the rocks.
No, I'm not.
Don't, please.
But we have been in a civil partnership since 2007, so that the children were, within that kind of umbrella.
So that's not living in sin, then, is it? That's legit.
Well, the only reason really I'm doing it is because in a civil partnership you can't turn off the life support or claim the death benefit. So
you've got a plan for your next summer holiday.
I've got a plan.
Cunning plan.
Heaven forbid that should ever happen.
Yeah,
so May next year.
Smashing.
In a lovely little place that hopefully we can sort out. And best man selected. So there's another bit of news, another bit of announcement. Because the Right Honourable Al Coates MB I have asked to be my best man. And he said yes. Yay!
I know.
And he's regretting it ever since.
I am really scared. I don't know how...
Don't be as scared as Triss's best man, because Triss is having a stag night in Bangkok. So
God grief.
We'll go a little less. We might do Cramlington or something
we
like that.
We might do Skegness and go halvesies on a bag of chips.
Yeah, we'll keep ours within budget.
Are we going to go the whole lady boy?
Yeah,
all that. Oh, I have no idea. I am genuinely terrified, and I'm having to speak to some grown-ups about what's to be expected on a gay best man's day out. I have no idea what that happens. This is a man who doesn't drink. I'm like your friend who drinks the least.
I promise you, you'll have to that day to keep up.
Anyway, I'm gonna have to build up my tolerance to alcohol.
Yeah,
Oh, it's good. It's good.
There we go.
Right, podcast business. I've got a bit of business here. One, as you can tell, I'm feeling much more angry now the autumn's come. I want controversial guests from now on.
Oh.
And I'm going to fight every single one of them that comes on.
So is it every podcast going to be like this then, where I just sit here going, okay, okay, ding ding, round two?
Yeah, basically.
Mopping brows, changing gum shields, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, holding the spit bucket. Oh, back to the stag night.
You can't say that on the podcast. Come on.
I just did.
Get serious. Okay.
So I think I've got a few people lined up. I'll go through them. Lucy Peake from The Guardians.
Yeah, like Lucy.
Yeah, good. That's cool.
Yeah.
We've got Hubis Thornberry Bus. Hube Thornberry. So what I want him to come on for, because he's done this report, hasn't he, which was released and kind of was it released, or was it just kind of
well, it's been done for the DFE and CVA, hasn't it? Or for the SGLB, and we did contribute to it. To be fair, through the Adopters Reference Group, and I did some work separately as well. So. And
that's kind of looking at the future of adoptions, and it's looking at
and special
guardianship. Also, I'd like to speak to Honor Rhodes about, we were talking, because we had a Twitter kind of thing about losing our temper as parents.
Yes.
We could run a whole series.
I thought that was really interesting, actually. Yeah. I thought it was a really interesting conversation, even though I didn't take part in it. I did.
So we'll do that. The next one I would like to do is to speak to a guy called Nigel Priestley, who's a solicitor for Ridley and Hall, who market themselves as the adoption solicitors. But I'd like to talk to him about sort of disruptions or family breakdowns, because I think that he would probably... my nervousness, and I think you've reflected this, my nervousness is getting people on and kind of laying their stories out bare. It's quite a vulnerable thing to do. So he might be able to... He's probably got experience of a lot of... He's sort of the bottleneck for that experience for a lot of people, so he might be able to come and share that with us. Does that sound fair? Yeah.
That does, yeah.
I've got other people on my list, but I can't find my list. Adopt a Voice. How do you think sorry, not the Adopt a Voice. I've written Adopt a Voice. The Adopter Stories.
Yes.
And that's interesting. I think people are enjoying them, and they're just kind of out there, little noodling along.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're not anything that... rewind. I find them interesting because I listened to... You sent me them both before you popped them all together, and I listened to them on my sunbed in Thailand.
Oh, gave over.
And actually, they were really, really engaging in terms of, and then, okay, so there was a lot of kind of, and I hope that's, I know that was your intent with them, actually, was to not just do a bit of validation work, but also to share experiences for maybe new people who are coming through and who don't know what to expect. But they're very balanced, has to be said. I thought they were very balanced.
Yeah.
And I think that makes all the difference, because actually, nobody is dissing their children as such, just maybe what they've been through the process and outcomes.
I've got quite a clear conversation I have with people before, and I said, this is not about your children, this is about you. And this is not the conversation you'd have if you were doing a prep group or, down with your cynical old adopter friends at the pub. This is, just be honest. And I usually spend about 25, 30 minutes with people before, just talking to them. And I say, right, I'm just going to ask you questions. And I kind of wanted to put music in, which is a bit odd for me because I don't like overproduced stuff. But I just felt actually these things might float around the internet for a long time and just bring a bit of hope and a bit of positivity to the whole situation. A bit of balance, like you say. Balance is good.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that we have a duty to be able to do that, because as much as we might have Nigel Priestley as a potential guest to talk about disruptions, parenting from a distance, all that sort of stuff, I think we have a duty as hosts of this to make sure that is portrayed as well. So not just doing the kind of the extremes, but also there will be adopter stories that actually they've just gone through a process and they've ended up with children. I'm sure that'll come up at some point. Rare, but it will come.
Well, I think both of them sort of reflected what I would say is really common experience of just actually there's been wobbles and good days, bad days, and balance. But I think interestingly, when you look at other people who are putting stuff out there like that, we've got no vested interest. We're not trying to recruit adopters, and we're not being paid to recruit adopters. We're just doing it for the hell of it. And that, I think, gives it I hope it gives it a little bit of a different sort of integrity.
I hope so as well.
I hope so. And you and I, we're hopefully going to do foster carers as well.
We are.
I'd really like to do adoptees, but I think that's maybe a stretch too far for me at the moment.
Just give Lottie a microphone.
What? Just give
Lottie the microphone.
Send her off into the wilderness. Off she goes, bless her.
She'll sort it.
She'll.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit trickier, like you and I have spoken about. But I think the foster care one will be interesting as well, because I think that we do focus a lot on adoption, and I think that's because our lives is consumed with adoption. But we are the Adoption and Fostering podcast, so we are going to uphold our responsibilities and our duties to do that as well. Yeah. And it'll be really interesting, because I feel that foster carers are a breed unto themselves. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that they're we have to advocate as adopters, but imagine being a foster carer who has to advocate for a child who is in a care system that they're dealing with that initial kind of entry into the care system and what they have to do. I mean, I've never had to do it, because, like I say, I fostered one and adopted him. Yeah. So my experience of foster care is limited, albeit been through the process. But yeah, it's a different kettle of fish when it's when I use this word, I don't mean it in the way you perceive it, but if you're a career foster carer, so you've done it for many, many years, it's a completely different.
It is, and I think you're right, and I think it would be really helpful just to hear those stories, because there's no one story, is there? Like adopters, there's one.
There's very similar stories, but they're not all the same.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I've said to you, the one thing I remember from my prep group is that there's no straightforward adoptions. There just aren't any. Everyone's twisty-turny, and it's the same for foster care. I've never come across any two situations the same. And even this year, I mean, I would love to be. There's a few stories that have really profoundly affected me, and I can't say, which is really frustrating. But I'm working a bit on that and working out how to do that. And also potentially, eventually, move towards maybe getting the odd birth parent. And I was I'm the trustee for a charity called Families in Care, which works with families who's got children in care, and they're holding a little conference presented by birth parents on their story, which would be fantastic. But I can't get to it. Can you believe it? All the flexibility I've got in my life, and I can't get to that one meeting. Good. So that's
But you know, that's interesting because I've been to a conference where the whole. So you've had it was in Yorkshire and Humber actually, and they did a conference around adoption, and they invited birth parents to come and speak. And do you know what? Just listening to them made it real. Like, you know, we know that we are living this life and we know what we have to deal with every day, but actually to have that other dimension, to see that other dimension, to hear that other dimension, it just made it so real. And I mean, you know, in the same way that the best part apparently of a prep group becoming an adopter or a foster care is hearing from the adopter or the foster care. That's what it should be about. It should be about the, you know, these real experiences of why this happened, where they are now, how they feel about the children, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And it's just really whacks you right between the eyes.
And I think that's got to be the future of adoption. That has to be for the welfare of children and for the stability of foster adoptive homes. I think that's got to be the future. Oh, we've got all very serious. We're supposed to. Where's the banter? Where's the banter gone?
Où est le banter? Oh, no, I've gone French now.
Les banter.
In it.
In it. You're so street. You're so street. Well, that's it. I'm gonna go.
That is it.
I've had enough now. I had loads of things I wanted to talk to you about, but I feel like I feel thoroughly washed out after Martin Barrow has basically ragdolled me around the podcast.
Oh dearie me, yeah. I think I need to lie down as well. But yeah, it was an interesting conversation with them. And
one again, the frustrations I always get to is where are we having these conversations? And on Twitter's a good place, but and this is not the right place, right? This is a good place. I mean, I enjoy it. You enjoy it. Well, I don't know whether you enjoy it, but he enjoyed it. But actually, who's having these conversations in the corridors of power?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I'm cross. Yeah,
and I think that's come up in the last 24 hours actually by on Twitter actually. This Beyond 2020 thing when the ESF ends and you know there's no what's happening. Nobody's picking up. Nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's said yes. This is what we're going to do to make sure that you continue to be supported. And you know, I think is it the therapeutic. I can't remember who they're called anyway. But it's come up. That has come up on Twitter, but it's on Twitter. And we have all these politicians tweeting about how fantastic everything is and this, that, and the next thing. What about these things? You know, we know that there's a big spending review for 2020 and all this sort of stuff, but actually this isn't going to stop just because you have a spending review. You know, they've announced today about the police, about the emergency services, how they're underfunded and they have to invest urgently, otherwise, that's and the same with the NHS. Well, I'm sorry, but you know, in 2 years' time, I'm still going to be here dealing with issues with an older child who's still got these issues, and where am I going to go if there's no funding to get that help?
Younger children as well. And I was sat thinking about writing a blog, which is probably 90% of my waking life. So I'm sad.
Funny, I've thought about quite a few blogs over the last couple of weeks.
I bet you have. And I just thought, I want to write a blog about how we need to kind of, are we thinking about support? Are we thinking about this and that? And I thought, you know what? I wrote one and I looked at my blog and I thought, oh no, that's exactly the same as the one I wrote last September. It's the same blog. I thought
it must be an annual thing for you.
I have this bright thought once a year.
After the schools go back.
Yeah, I could have resurgence of my mind. Oh, we didn't do too bad, to be honest with you. We had an okay summer. There was a frisson of tension the week when the baby was due, and we went we were induced. And
but that's because you had the babysit. I mean, parent. Sorry.
Honestly, you have no idea, and I can't describe the bizarreness of the experience of this running commentary from Paula. I mean, I have to say for Paula, it was just a magical experience because she's never been in a birth. 6 children, no birth. So she got to cut the cord and she got to do all of that kind of thing. But by then I was just so bored, if I'm honest with you. To be fair,
some of the messages you were sending me as well, I felt like I was getting a running commentary as well. And I was halfway around the world.
Yeah, just have it, please.
And what was all the measurement things? What was 6 centimeters? What's that? No, I'm joking. I know what it means. I don't need you to repeat it.
Yeah.
But,
Paula said, I think it's 6, and I said 6 what? And she went meters. And I went, what? Good grief.
Oh, she's having a giant.
Lokes. That's gonna sting. It'll be fine. And anyway, we've fallen into that baby banter.
We probably need to continue the chatter offline, because as you can tell, dear listeners, we haven't spoken all summer.
It's been
since podcast party, actually, since podcast summer party.
No, when we were young and happy.
Yeah. Well, it was before the school holidays.
It was.
Anyway.
Yeah. Stay well, and I shall speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, and if you want to leave a review on iTunes, go for it. Good one, though. Good one.
Yeah, no, not bad one. We don't want bad ones.
Good one. Mention me by name. Anyway.
He gets discount at Sainsbury's if you do.
That'll go my annual appraisal. Well, that's due in September. Oh, crikey. Yeah. Anyway.
Dress codes. Yeah,
anyway, oh, heavens.
Goodbye,
okay,
listeners.
I'll speak to you soon. Bye.